What a Wild Spirit Brings by Lil, Chapter 37. When she woke up, it was still dark out. She started pulling on her garb, trying to be silent, but Tamrock sat up and looked suddenly sad. She motioned for him to go back to sleep, and he got up and started pulling on clothes over his small clothes. She shook her head, but he kept on. She finished pulling on her garb and then looked into the wicker crib. Ashen was awake and watching her with those gray eyes of his. It was like he knew she was leaving. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. I will be back, little brother. I have to help a friend. I love you. You will be happy here. I love you. She pulled out her book and showed him their mother's face for a few minutes, then pulled it away and kissed him again. She turned to leave and found Tamrock waiting, a sack on his back and a cloak in his hand for her. She took it with a little sigh, and off they went into the dark. He lit his lantern, and they walked away from Yedam, down the mountain trail. For a while she was quiet, but emotion was in her so strong she had to say something finally, or she would explode into tears, which could be deadly in this cold. Munchin won't just die if I don't go. Munchin won't just destroy things. He'll kill. He's already going mad. I can't let him turn into a monster. I can't let him kill his wife like my father almost killed mother. I want to stay and be happy and call this home, but I can't, Tamrock. I can't. I know. I don't even know why you want me here. It's not like I'm the most pleasant person in the world. You should have turned me away. I told you, it's not my nature. Lil fell silent again. They trudged in the dark through the snow. She was glad he came, even though she wasn't, because the way was slick and close to sheer ledges in some places. She couldn't imagine having been able to do it alone. As dawn came, they were almost to the foot of the mountain. She could see the town in the distance and the cell. Tamrock suddenly stopped. Take off your head wrap and veil. Don't let people see under your cloak. Your Andry face should save you a riot like you had before. She nodded and did as he bade her. Then they set off again. He set the pace quicker now, at a light trot. Once to the little town, they walked in like they belonged there, even though most people were still indoors this early. They passed the buildings until they came to one near the river, which had a sign over the double doors bearing a fish and oar. He knocked loudly until someone answered. What? Who be ye? Wait! Ye be that soldier returned some months ago. What ye want? Master Peregrine, I seek passage on your ferry for my friend here. I pay you now for today, plus extra for when she returns. No questions, just take the coin and remember, when she comes back, whatever and whenever that may be, whether tomorrow or 10 years from now or even 100, she's paid for. If you forget, I'll have to forget I'm a shepherd now. Right, I be an honest barge master. You need no be threatening me. Just don't forget, she will take the ferry now. A forced cereal? Yes. Tamrock held out 2 golden coins. The man licked his lips. He reached out to take them, but Tamrock closed his hand and reminded the man that one was for her return. Right, me said me no forget. Tamrock let him have the coins, and then led Lil to the new barge, much smaller than the one before. Like, those coins are worth way more than a trip across, aren't they? Yes, but I understand he lost his barge when you came through here last time. His brother on the other shore almost hung himself over it. I didn't mean for that. I owe a great debt wherever I go, it seems. Your debt is paid now, and he won't forget. He never forgets a face. Lucky you, it was his brother who saw you and not him. No, it isn't paid. I owe you now. You owe me nothing. I have a son where I may never have had one. If you insist on thinking of debts, think on that. But some day, Lil, you will learn. It really is my nature. Lil hugged him. She couldn't help it. He gave a surprised grunt, then put an arm around her. She breathed in the sweet scent of sweat and goats, then let go and strode onto the ferry without looking back. He put the sack on her shoulder, then left, and she didn't turn around until Master Peregrine came aboard with 6 men to haul them across. The men grumbled a bit about not getting breakfast, calling it cereal, like he had, but a few thunks on the head with a cudgel, and they stopped. On the other side, the very 2 guards who had been going to stop her from getting on were told to escort her safely out of town. She was a preferred customer. Lil found it hard not to laugh. Once a mile out from the mining village, they left her to go on her way. After a mile more, she decided she was going too slowly and ran a mile, walked a mile, ran a mile, walked a mile, almost without rest. She found that the pack had some rolls and dried jerky in it, along with some wonderful little bars she didn't recognize. They were made of oats and shredded meat and melted cheese that had hardened to hold it all together. There were even a couple other bars that had honey and nuts and butter in them. She was focused on reaching Munchin. She had to. She had to save Liv and him and take him to Sheolum, light, to the place of death, of doom itself. Sheolum, land of monsters and the birthplace of Kurik and Monsol. Sheolum was said to be poisoned down to the air, and what few plants grew there. Everything there was carnivorous and brutal. Every living creature was out of a nightmare. All men in all countries agreed on fighting the evils of Sheolum, except the few demented fools who thought in aiding the Dark Land they would be made rulers of it, of the world, if Sheolum grew to cover it. Unfortunately, it was growing. Bit by bit, year by year, it was expanding. Old folk spoke of days when there was a country between Andros and the desert. It had been consumed by the sands on the side, and the horde of monstrosities on the other. Munchin's home, once reached, was at first glance how she had left it. She was so exhausted she almost collapsed with relief. But she didn't dare. She needed to sleep, but even more she needed to find Munchin. She came closer and realized the house was silent. She walked inside, knocking as she did, and found the house empty. There was a small fire still in the hearth and some half-eaten bread on the table. The bed had been thrown on its side. Lil went outside, studying the ground for tracks. She found some almost right away, leading east from the house. She ran. What had happened? Who had overturned the bed? It couldn't have been long ago. Urgency pressed her tiredness aside for the moment. She hurried along the mountain valley, scanning the earth as she moved for traces of someone passing. A track here, an overturned clod of dirt there, some broken sticks. As she searched, the trees, all short and pointing accusing branches at her, trembled in the breeze at some unknown horror. Something terrible had happened. She could feel it, and the deepening worry was impeding her breath more than the elevation. It wasn't long before she found a tree with an axe in it. She tried to find traces of the direction they went, but she was not a tracker. She continued east and hoped it was right. As night was falling, she came through some brush, almost tripping on Liv's body. The woman looked like she had been strangled from the bruises on her neck, her lifeless face a picture of confusion and terror. Lil wanted to weep. It was her fault. She had let it happen. She hadn't sent him to Sheolom when she had had the opportunity. The Anther were right. The Wild Ones were right. Light, help her, they were right. Sobbing, she fell to her knees, whispering apology to Liv's corpse. They had been so in love, but even that couldn't combat the corruption spreading in Munchin's mind. Lil gently wept for some time, stroking the dead Liv's hair and begging for forgiveness.